Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Forgotten Horror Podcast. This has been a while. This has been a long time coming, but we're back big time. And our first guest, well, my first guest, is one of my closest friends I've known for many, many, many years, Mr. Carlos. How are you doing, Carlos? Mr. Eastwood fan for life. How are you doing?
Yeah, Eastwood for life, fan back.
Yeah.
Always good to talk horror with you, Dave. It's been a while.
Yes.
And this movie that we've chosen, well, request from me, is a horror favorite of mine. So it's definitely one I'd love to talk with you in an episode. So yeah, why not?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this film, we were talking briefly before we started recording. This film is such an easy watch, isn't it, Carlos?
Yeah, do you know what? In today's kind of horror sort of movie community, it kind of gets lost and forgotten. I mean, I'm going to bring this one up. Obviously, 45 years old now, the movie 1980, and it gets forgotten. I mean, when John Carpenter gets mentioned, everyone's going to talk about Halloween and The Thing, and probably the other movies like Escape from New York, They Live. This one for me goes under the radar, a bit of a cult sort of favourite. And even though it had mixed reviews when it first came out, I think it's more appreciated for a kind of mature movie fan rather than the newer movie fan.
Oh, absolutely. It's got that late 70s charm to it, hasn't it? Really has. I mean, it was the one after Halloween, which I think, like you said, Carpenter is known for Halloween, and I think even he's fed up with it. I think I think he gets oversaturated with Halloween because I think The Fog is one of his personal favourites. If I'm not wrong, Carlos.
Yeah, I mean, there's talk that he was a little bit unhappy with the production of it. Obviously, they had to reshoot some scenes. I'm glad that he did, because I think there were certain gore scenes and some kills that made it a little bit more horrific, that added to the movie. I think the original cut was around about 80 minutes, and he thought, needed a little bit more of a. I mean, it's more of a ghost story dash slasher film, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, I would say it was definitely a ghost story rather than a slasher. I think he added those, like you said, he added those elements in, like he did with Halloween 2 to ramp it up. He did the same thing to Halloween 2, even though, like he rebuked Halloween 2 beyond belief. But it's the best sequel, and Carpenter coming back adding that magic to it. You could see the similarities to the original, but he ramped up the kills, and he did the same with The Fog as well. On a second rerun of The Fog, he said, no, we need something more in this. And he brought back. He added a couple of the scenes, didn't he?
Yeah, I think there was a few extra scenes shot. I think what I read up, I think that the budget was just under $1 million, and obviously they reshot certain scenes. I think the Adrian Barbeau scene on top of the lighthouse, they done a couple of scenes there. I think the Jamie Lee Curtis scene in the hospital, I think that was added to it. It made it a little bit more close to a Halloween movie, even though he did want to sort of be typecasted just as a slasher film director.
He did add. There was certain elements to that, like you just mentioned, that hospital scene. That was very Michael Myers-esque when you see the legs just slowly getting off, and the camera angle. It was a very Michael Myers-esque scene, and like she's there, and in the background you could see and I thought you could certainly see the Halloween connection right there. The very, very Michael Myers-esque scene. Well, I think with this, I think Carpenter had you could tell he had a good time filming for the most part of it, because it flowed more, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I class it as a very simple movie to understand, even though there is a bit of a background story which kind of unravels towards the end of the movie. It's a pretty simple movie. I mean, it's 90 minutes, which is probably my only slight gripe, because I do love this movie. I just wished it had been an extra 20 minutes. Yeah, I mean, I think had this been a movie he might have directed maybe 10 years later, he probably might have made it more, towards a 2 hour mark.
What would you have liked to have saw, Carlos? What would if you had the chance to just put that extra 10, 20 minutes in there, what would you have liked to have seen in the fog?
Do you know, I actually thought about this today earlier, and I thought, you know what, maybe a little bit of the background story at the start, without giving too much detail, with obviously
would that
the
be
tale.
Would you see the shipwreck or not? No, that would be a Carpenter-esque thing, wouldn't it? It'd show you the storms crashing and then the sea, and you see not the figure, but they see the figures, and then they'd see the lights, and the next thing the ship would crash, and then they'd all sink to the ground. The under the water scene.
Yeah,
I think that'd be an epic beginning, wouldn't it?
If there was a higher budget, I would have liked to have seen that, but without Carpenter giving too much detail into it, because obviously it's a little bit of a mystery background story, which kind of gets unravelled with Father Malone as he discovers the hidden.
Well, he's telling the tale, isn't he? He's like filling in the blanks, isn't he? So
yeah. I mean, I think that would be.
He plays a great part, doesn't he? He's the drunken priest.
Yeah, I mean, I think Hal Holbrook. I think he's kind of like the centre point of the story.
He's
main
the glue.
character.
He's the glue, isn't he? That's keeping that together. I mean, I always remember him from Magnum Force.
Briggs.
I mean Briggs. Briggs. He's just like he's an amazing villain. But in this, he was so versatile as the drunken priest. You know what I mean? Really, really cool performance by him in this, and he has one of them voices in this where you can't help but listen to him. He's like one of them old guys that you see at the pub from years ago who sit in the corner. He'd tell you tales of stuff, and he was like so. He was just such a person to listen to, and this comes across in the film really good. Father Malone is just a really good character.
Yeah, I do like the scenes where he's kind of reading pages from his grandfather's journal, which he discovers at the start of the movie. Which I don't know if you know this. I only found out today, as I was doing a little bit of homework, that Christopher Lee was offered the part. Did you know that?
Right. Yeah. Well, the thing is, Christopher Lee was offered the role of Dr. Loomis in Halloween because Carpenter was a huge fan of British Hammer horror films. He wanted Christopher Lee as Dr. Loomis. He wanted Peter Cushing, maybe. And then, but again, I heard the fog. He was Christopher Lee again was approached with Father Malone. I mean, whether the producers like Erwin Yablans talked Carpenter out of Christopher Lee and Cushing and got Donald Pleasance in, whether he was talked out of Christopher Lee in the fog, because Christopher Lee was typecast as Dracula, wasn't he? And he was never going to shake that image off at that time in 1979, 1980.
Yeah, I think with that, had Peter Cushing or Christopher Lee had been in Halloween or possibly in the fog, you're probably pushing out the boat as for them, for the actual purse for them to take on the role, because obviously they would have been sort of legendary actors by that time, so it might have been a bit expensive.
I think it might have harmed the films in a way, because if you put Christopher Lee or Cushing in any of those roles, you're going to see Van Helsing or Dracula, and they couldn't shake that image. But it's the way. I mean, obviously they were classic British actors, but I think in choosing Donald Pleasance and Hal Holbrook, I think the right call was made. I think for those roles, it was the right call to make.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, they're fine actors in themselves for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I mean that beginning as well. I was surprised they didn't have old Donald Pleasance doing the telling the ghost story with the kids around the campfire at the
Oh,
beginning. That would have been
yeah.
nice. But he had like an old salty sea dog
Yeah.
telling the tale, didn't he? Which was like very atmospheric. It's a very simple thing he did, but the way he interjected the scenery, the sea, and it come down and the campfire, you know what I mean? I thought it was
Yeah.
that was filmmaking at its best for me, Carlos.
I've got to be honest, that opening when they're telling the tale to the kids at the campfire, that is one of my favourite opening scenes because you even see the kids as the story's being told. You know, they're really listening into the tale, and obviously this kind of opens the movie. And you coming up with that idea that Donald Pleasance would have been good to have done that, that definitely would have worked because, as we know, John Carpenter always used actors and actresses, you know, in his movies following.
Yeah, I mean that old man though, he told a tale and he's had his little stopwatch out, didn't he? And he was taking spidey points, and and he was doing the whole thing. But you totally boss it. You could sit there
Yeah,
and we would have been then the kids' age at that time, wouldn't we? If we
yeah.
go back to 79, me and you, Carl, would have been those kids sort of age, and we'd have been mesmerised by this character telling us all these tales. You know what I mean? It
Oh,
would have been
absolutely,
a magical time
absolutely,
because
absolutely. I mean, funny thing is, I watched this a couple of weeks ago, and I watched it with my nephews for the first time. And during that opening scene, I actually said to him, "Boys, just listen to this opening scene and this ghost story because it's perfect."
yeah,
And you know, it pulled them in.
yeah, yeah. What I like is like you've got your nephews, I've got my daughter, our Mia, and I've shown her these films as well. Um, I've said to her now, they're not obviously they're old films now. For them, they're
Mm,
old films, and I've said, but you listen to what they're saying and you listen to the story. And something happens, she sits there and she, like your nephew, she takes it in. Because
yeah,
films today don't do that today. They don't. It doesn't. It's all effects and blah blah blah, and it's all fast paced moving. With this, it was a
yeah.
nice, slow, steady pace, and the old man was telling telling the tale, and he was taking his time. And then the clock started bonging, and he looked and he said,
Yeah.
"Well, you know, it was just such a perfect setup for a film." I mean, I love The Fog. I mean, I think it's one of Carpenter's best, without a doubt. It's one of his
Yeah,
best.
yeah. I mean, it's definitely in my top five, um, for sure. I mean, what I like about the movie, it's a slow, steady build up, the atmosphere, and I think what's lacking these days in horror movies is those kind of dark, creepy sort of storytelling. You know, where a lot of the horror movies nowadays just depend
Yeah.
on sort of gore, special effects, and it doesn't need that to be creepy. You
No,
know, this kind
I,
of
I,
goes back. This kind of goes back to the old-fashioned movies of the '60s. You know, that gothic sort of dark, black, greeny
that's
grey
right.
look.
Like the T-Gun series and all those films, the Tygon films and the Warrens and all those classic films that came before this. They all told a story, and
Yeah,
it was the story, not the effects, that sold it. It was the story.
yeah,
Now we were talking before about how like horror films now have become so over bloated and they try and put too much in and then the effects and the story is the last thing they tell. The
yeah.
story must be written on half a piece of paper. This is the story,
Mm.
that's the gist. Let's get all these effects and stuff going on. Now, for me, I'm not a real fan of modern horror at all. I'm more that that era of horror because we were talking about how simplistic Halloween was. And then
Yeah,
when you watch the Halloween sequels as they go on and on and on after Halloween 2, he gets further and further away from what he was in the original. He's more like Jason. There's more kills. They try and explain things, and it just doesn't work. Keeping it simple is the best thing to do with a horror film. Such a simple thing. The Fog was the same thing. Keep it simple. You had from A to B, leading on to C and D and E. No jumps. It was just boom, 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 and it was carefully plotted. And that's what's missing today in horror films.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, this is why I like The Fog, because it's not complicated. Even though there is a background story which does kind of it gets unraveled, but it's easy. It's an easy horror movie to follow, and it's kind of a little bit. I think it gets lost with kind of newbie horror fans, where they might look at The Fog and think, oh well, there's not a lot of gore to it, and there's not much about it. But like for me, it's the visuals, it's the atmosphere, the creepiness. That's what wins it for me. And like you say, it's just a simple ghost story tale that is really. It's one of those movies that's easily rewatched over and over again, and a renowned classic for me.
I mean, every time if I'm flicking over on the movie channels and there's a scene from The Fog, I just sit there and watch it. I'll guarantee I'll sit there, I'll have my cup of tea or whatever, and I'll watch it and I'll think, wow, they don't make films like this anymore. It's just everything's gone like a million miles an hour nowadays to try and keep up with the latest trends and the way the world and technology's gone. It's all about effects and how to shock people for these quick cut shocks, and it doesn't work anymore. It might work for the kids, but for us, we could predict what's going on in a film before the ending. We'd say, "Oh, here's another one. Here's another one. Here's another one." You know, when you look at this body of films from this era, there's a sense. I mean, you can even add like something like "He Knows You're Alone," "When a Stranger Calls." You know, those type of films. They're not big on gore. They're big on suspense. They're big on atmosphere. They're big on theatre of the mind, Carlos. The Fog sits right there at the top of that bunch, because not only are we getting the tale, we're getting the little spooky happenings like the windows breaking, the car alarm starting, the glass shaking in the shop. You know what I mean? And it's those sort of things that you go, oh, hang on a second. And like the chair, something like the poltergeist lifted where the chair shoots across. And it was like Nancy Loomis is stood there and she's like, oh, you know. And it's just those little things that put you on edge a little thing, or what is going to happen.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean,
the dogs.
I kind of sort of think when I first watched this, I mean, I'm going back a while. I mean, I knew who Carpenter was. I mean, as a young teen going in the video store, I saw Halloween on there. You know, it was one of the titles. I think Halloween 2 was always the one that I always recognised the cover with the pumpkin.
Yeah, with the pumpkin. Yes, my favourite cover.
And even though Carpenter didn't direct that, he created the first movie.
Well, he says that, but if you look at it, he written it, he scored it, he produced it, he part directed it. You know what I mean? So it makes it his film as much as anything. And he, like you say, he did an awful lot to that film, and he re-edited it as well.
So I think The Fog. I've seen the cover, but we just got our dad had just got his. We just got our first video player and recorder, and actually, The Fog with A Fistful of Dollars were the first two movies that we recorded off TV. And I remember rewatching The Fog over and over again because it's literally a 90-minute movie. It's a simple watch. So there's a lot of memories for me watching this movie. And even back then, as I'm watching the story unravel, you never quite know that Blake's kind of pirate crew or fishing crew, what's actually going to happen towards the end. Obviously, they've come back for, or what had happened. No spoiler alert. Obviously, the gold had been taken away from them, but I didn't know how it was going to sort of end.
Yeah.
Like, one of the things that I always enjoyed, even seeing it now, the ghosts that reappear.
Yeah.
They're just shadows. You don't see, they just kept as a mystery. You're sort of thinking, who are these people? You're always kind of thinking, what are they going to do next? You don't get a really good look at them. They're just dark shadows with red eyes. And I always like that look.
Yeah.
And
It's
I think
again,
originally,
it's like, that's more scary when you see a figure and you can't really make out what it is. But it's a man or a figure, and you think, and the fog's around him, and it's just like, yeah, they are haunting figures. Those people are, and you know that the makeup effects artist Rob Bottin, he was Blake, wasn't he?
I think you're going to say, because like, I think when John Carpenter, it said in the documentary, in the features in this, that when John Carpenter saw what they looked like, he kind of said that they looked like wet scarecrows, because he just laughed at it. So he thought, right, let's just keep them in the shadow so the viewer won't know
And he
who they
added,
are.
the only time you saw him is when he added those scenes, on top of the lighthouse with Stevie Wayne to cut that, and you could see the maggots and the worms. But for the most part, you just see figures like in rags, don't you? Just attacking, like they got Mrs. Colbrit's there, didn't they? And Charles Cyphers, they dragged him into the fog as well. So
I always, you saying about Miss Colbrit's, the lady, the elderly lady was looking after the little boy, Stevie Wayne's Andy.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was thinking, no, don't tell me they're going to kill the elderly lady. And I was quite shocked when I saw that. I thought, wow.
Because people forget, back then this was all new to us. And I said, I was saying to Jilly before, I said, horror now, the kids like your nephews and mine, they're never going to have the same experiences that we had, because when we watched these films, it was the first Michael Myers, it was the first Jason, it was the first Freddy. Once it's been done, it's been done. And it was the first Fog, the first Salem's Lot, the first Exorcist. We were having those as firsts. Now, that can't be repeated. They try, they try to repeat it, but it's never as good as the originals. So that's what's missing. That's what's sad about horror now. There's not going to be more first, because you're going to get your supernatural and stuff, but there's only one Exorcist, there was only one Amityville Horror, there was only one Omen, you see? Only one Halloween. See, all these things, they have, that era was just golden of filmmaking, and this is why The Fog is such a special movie, such a special film, because it just ticks the boxes for everything. Got a bit of everything in it.
I also got to sort of say one thing. The cast in this, fantastic cast. Adrienne Barbeau, I always liked her. Obviously, she appeared in more Carpenter movies.
Escape from New York, yeah.
I always liked her in that Two Evil Eyes with that Dario Argento, George A. Romero anthology. I thought she was good in that. Jamie Lee Curtis is kind of a little bit. She's kind of a bit wasted in this one. She didn't really need to be in it.
Yeah, there was nothing much for us. She was just like a hitchhiker, wasn't she? Who ends up with Tom Atkins.
Yeah, Tom Atkins, I enjoyed. You could say he's like, he's a little bit of a hero.
He plays the same suave character in every film, didn't he?
Yeah, normally, yeah, he would. He was a bit of a hero, and I do like the scene where he saves Andy. That was a good scene. That was a really, really good scene.
But Carpenter said he felt sorry for Jamie Lee Curtis because after she did Halloween, she got nothing. So he put her in The Fog, and I think that was just a rewrite for Jamie Lee Curtis to be in because her mum was in it, Janet Leigh.
Yeah.
And again, Nancy Loomis, again, she was terrific. Charles Cyphers, Nancy Loomis, a couple of the, I mean, and wasn't it Tom Atkins' character was called Nick Castle, the original shape from Halloween.
Halloween, yeah.
So Nick Castle was in there. Tommy Lee Wallace would have been around as well.
Yeah, I mean, he always paid sort of homage to like the names of characters and actors that he would use in movies. I always liked that sort of touch from John Carpenter, that he would use a regular. They're kind of like friends, weren't they? Because they would come in other movies, weren't they? Or sometimes you would use them in the voiceover, like Jamie Lee Curtis in Escape from New York.
Yeah, people didn't realise that, but straight away she's got a recognisable voice, and the voiceover at the beginning was solely Jamie Lee Curtis.
I've got to be honest, the last time I watched that, I mean, the first couple of times when I watched that movie, I didn't pick up on that, but it was only recently, a couple of years ago, when I watched it, I was thinking, oh, that's Jamie Lee, because like you say, very distinctive voice.
It's her voice, isn't it? She's quite monotone, but it is Jamie Lee Curtis without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, even though she doesn't really play a major part. I mean, she's just a hitchhiker, but they do use her on the poster to sell the movie quite a bit.
Absolutely, and she does sort of like give a good supporting role to Janet Leigh and Father Malone. She does do an all right. Tom Atkins was there. I mean, when they get Buck Flowers out there as one of the drunk fishermen, he was brilliant. I mean, he's a legend, isn't he? Buck Flowers.
I got to say one thing. I mean, I know Jamie's got her fans out there, and you've got certain people that don't like her. I always like the way she screamed in a horror movie, because it's it really does go through your ears completely.
Yeah. She had a set of lungs, didn't she? She was known as a scream queen, though. That's what Halloween, The Fog, Halloween 2. She was known as a scream queen. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But again, Buck Flowers in there. There's quite that when they're all drunk at sea, and there's no thug bank out there. Then there's a thug bank out there.
Scene.
And,
love
and
that
then,
scene.
That is just, and then there's the guy downstairs in the deck, and his friends have been hatcheted up on the deck, and you just see what's going on. Because you see the ship at the side, and then they just you just do them, don't they? It's good. Good scene.
I love the way they use those kind of hooks as well, because I think that adds to it.
They're like the old whaling hooks, aren't they? They are old school, them. Yeah.
And it gives that. It gives that.
Man.
Yeah. And actually, that last scene where they got the other guy because they got the first two guys, and obviously the other guy, you could hear one of them coming through, and you can hear him squelching with the water. I thought that was a really, really good scene.
Yeah.
Great scene, that.
Absolutely. And then it's like they grab him, and the next thing you just see him with his eyes, do the eyes, don't they? And that was like quite a visceral scene as well back in its day. It's just a great film. I mean, and it builds up towards the fog coming more and more inland, and then they're doing the anniversary, aren't they?
Yeah. One thing I will say before I forget, the soundtrack. I always think the more times I watch this, the soundtrack's more pleasing to the ears, because I think it's one of Carpenter's best.
Yeah, I mean, the theme from the fog is it's up there with Halloween, no doubt. It's just so iconic, but I like the locations of the beaches and that. You can see the beach is just that. When she sees that road and then the lighthouse, so they go down to, there's a million steps going down. I mean, you wouldn't be drunk going down them steps, would you? You're falling down them.
I mean, they say the top.
Imagine walking down them things. You'd be knackered halfway down.
I heard there's, I think, 300 steps to that lighthouse, and I think that lighthouse still exists in California.
It does.
And
It's got a lot. There's a lot of location vids on YouTube over that, and I see. I'm a sucker for location vids. I mean, especially when I'm looking at the fog, and there's a few YouTubers recently that have done the fog, and it just looks exactly the same. The beach, the rocks, where Danny finds the gold coin, and then it turns into the wood with Elizabeth Dane on. Magical, mate. It's just pure atmosphere.
Yeah. I love the location that they shot that movie, because I think that plays a big part to the movie, because obviously when you touched upon on the opening, after the story of the tale gets read out, then you see John Carpenter's The Fog, and you see the beach at night. What a shot.
Yeah, I mean, those locations, that's what makes, because a lot of films now are either green screen or they're on a set, and you just can't beat being on somewhere like that, can you? You can't beat being out on the street filming somewhere real.
And even that shot when Adrian Barbeau, Stevie Wayne is walking to the lighthouse as she's going down the steps, you can see the waves, and what a shot that was.
I mean, that's what's missing from films today, I think, Carlos. The actual locations have changed, because now they get put on a Hollywood Studios backlot or somewhere, and the streets are not really streets. And you know this because of what the internet's turned into, and you can see, you know about everything before a film's released. The film's ruined before it gets released, because there's all pictures and everyone can see how it's made. But back in this day, we knew nothing. We didn't have YouTubers or people saying anything like that. We didn't have any of that. We didn't know what America was doing. We had no way to find out. So nothing was spoiled. We only had like the trailers on the beginning or the end of the VHS cassettes, didn't we? So this was like a proper era. This was like a really good time to watch movies. And I'm like, I think we're lucky that we grew up in that era, Carlos, that we could have that without today, where people want to know everything, you know?
Yeah. I totally agree. I mean, the horror movies of the 70s and 80s, in the 90s it had a bit of a comeback with certain movies, but I always, my favourite decades would be the 70s and 80s. You know,
absolutely.
They kind of vamped up horror movies a little bit more. You know, they had a little bit more leeway what they can get away with. You know, being more adult, a bit more gruesome.
Yeah.
For me, the best eras of my favourite horror movies were from the 70s and 80s.
I truly believe that's why all these films are so popular. Now they're getting the 4K treatment, and they're being re-released on because we just had the VHSs, didn't we? And if we had a knackered VHS copy, we had to see over the snow or the rolling picture and messing with the tracking for hours, didn't we? Did you ever have that where you sat there with your tracking and you couldn't the picture was rolling? I remember my dad jumping up, oh bloody hell's flames, and he's like smacking the TV, and I said, well, that's not going to fix the picture. And he's like messing with the tracking, and there'd be a line if the tape was creased, there'd be a line of snow over the eyes of the actors. So
the good thing is, as I said, that The Fog was one of the first two movies that I recorded. I remember that I enjoyed it that much. I pulled the little tab out. So
that was sacrilegious, because that meant you couldn't record over it. Remember, that was sacrilegious. So he's pulled the tab out. Well, then he used to put sellotape over to record over it.
That's why I did it, because I didn't want my dad or my brother to record over that tape, because that's how much I really enjoyed The Fog. I always remember that, pulling the little tab out.
Yeah, I think I was the same on some of the films that I'd recorded. Like, I think Salem's Lot was one of the first we ever recorded, because the miniseries come out You know, the TV series came out, and it was very early 80s. Because I was on, I mean, I remember it. I mean, I remember Barlow jumping up, and I was like, geez, tonight, you know what I mean? Like, when he jumps up. I think that was on TV in the early 80s, and I remember recording it with David Soul, and my mum said to me, "Oh, it's a Stephen King novel." And my mum used to like reading books, so she'd had the novel, and she had some of these things on book. So she was interested to see. So when Toby Hooper's Salem's Lot come on TV in the UK for the first time, early 80s, I pulled the tab out of that because I just did not want to get rid of it.
I love Salem's Lot, that one. Yeah.
Doesn't get enough love, that one, now.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree.
Well, it's right up there, though, with The Fog. I mean, The Fog, I mean, if you look at it today, it still looks really modern. The quality of the picture, like Halloween, shot in 78 and shot in 79. You look at other films of that ilk, and the pictures you can tell they're like old. But with The Fog and something like Halloween, they've been shot really classically, haven't they? They've really had.
Yeah,
Carpenter
always
had a good quality through it.
Carpenter always used to use those widescreen sort of scenic shots.
16 to 9, isn't it? Yeah.
And it kind of made the film look more bigger, more grander.
I believe Carpenter was ahead of his time because he must have envisioned that TVs in the future were going to have the 16 to 9 ratio. So Halloween and The Fog was made for our TVs of today. So that's why they look good.
Yeah.
Because some of the old films that now are getting the 4K treatment, they've still got the bars on the side. Some of them have still got the bars because they weren't filmed like that. But Carpenters, you can guarantee Carpenters were. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is, again, such a class, isn't it?
I mean, he was a great film director, no doubt. And like I said, I mean, a lot of the visuals and even the widescreen shots in this movie look really great. I kind of laugh when they sort of say about effects. You know, some people might say, "Oh, you know, it hasn't got that many effects." When you look at the smoke, the fog that they use, it was just smoke machines. That's all they used.
Yeah. I think the visual effects of where the fog was coming into the towns at the end, you know, like the big wide shots when it was coming on the beach and that was the only effects I think they used. But when you see the smoke machines, it passes great. When she's trying to start the generator up in the lighthouse and the fog's coming under the door and the banging's happening. It was so atmospheric, and you can go, God, get up there, get out. You know what I mean? Because them figures with the hooks are just gonna get you, aren't they?
I also always like
scary for its day. That
the little tap on the door, wasn't it?
The knock. Miss Colbritz, wasn't it? Knock, knock, knock. And it's like the scene where Tom Atkins and Jamie Lee Curtis are in the bed. And then you see the fog and the light, and then the knock, and they go, oh, and then just as it gets to the door, the score's building up, and it gets to like just after midnight, and he opens and it's all clear.
Yeah,
that freaked me out. That freaked me out when I watched it. I was like, whoa, because I was expecting something to happen, and it just didn't.
Yeah,
it was like,
he was
no one there.
He was almost going to get it, but he didn't.
He just took his time getting out of that bed, didn't he?
What did you make of the ending, David? Because they said that I think studios wanted a happy ending, but Carpenter didn't roll with that. Obviously, he had the extra add-on bit where Father Malone does get it. Yeah, because I think horror movies necessarily should really have a happy ending. You know, it should always be like, as they sometimes do, a possibility of the next movie.
Yeah, I think you should always end it with that, what if, or a bit of, or they come back to do. It's like, it's the last minute jump scare, isn't it? It's just like what you call the last minute jump scare, the last little bit of, if you look at all the classic horror films of the time, the last thing, there's always something in the last scene that just before the credits roll You know,
Yeah,
Jason jumped out the water and dragged the girl in.
yeah,
Michael Myers disappeared after he was shot. You know what I mean? Freddy grabbed the mum through the door. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Again,
yeah.
the fog. Rob Bottin was Blake, and he come back and poof, dead. You know what I mean? There's always something in those classic horror films.
How would you sell it to somebody who's never seen it before, Davey, with
I
your
would, sell-
expertise?
yeah, I would sell it. I would sell it as a ghost story, not as a horror slasher. I'd take that out of it and say it's a ghost story. You know, bit of supernatural going on, I say, but it's a ghost story that builds up to a great. I would sell it that way. I would sell it as old school suspense. You
Yeah,
know, that's what I would say. I would try and take the horror elements out as much as possible.
yeah. I'd probably sort of say it's like a creepy, atmospheric, old school horror movie. Nothing flash,
Yeah, yeah,
no CGI, and it's a great little horror tale.
yeah. I mean, I think today the word horror. When
Mm,
people say the word horror today, Carlos, I think they've got a pre notion of
mm,
blood, gore,
yeah,
whatever. You know, that's probably why I'd be like, yeah, it's more of a go. It's a top class ghost story. It's a
yeah.
film that you can watch and be immersed in, and you will get
Spooky.
spooked by it. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. There's some moments in it to keep you happy.
Would you say ghost stories nowadays are kind of are an old hat for horror movies?
Sadly, yeah, but you know what?
Yeah,
The, with the films like The Conjuring and such like that, they've brought that sort of ghost theme back.
yeah,
I watched The Conjuring 2 the other day with Amir. Um, that's got the great British vibe running
yeah,
right the way through it. The ghost, and then the reveal of the ghost, what they was when she pieced it all together. That was pretty
mm,
cool. That was pretty cool. So The Conjuring has brought an element of it back, which is nice to see. But
yeah,
you know, we got all these other ones like Paranormal Activities and all that took over. That sort of become
yeah,
the next thing, didn't it?
yeah. I got to be honest. I kind of wasn't really a fan of those. I mean, those had its little moment. I
Yeah.
don't think there's sort of really there's not many classic horror movies that comes from those types of movies, in my opinion.
No. I mean, again, when you say the word horror, you just expect gore now.
Yeah,
CGI gore, CGI effects and gore. You know, even the sequels to our favorite horror villains of, you know, it makes because it's been so overdone. It makes some of the sequels look brilliant.
yeah, yeah,
Where we can look at an original and go, "That's untouchable," and then we
yeah,
watch the sequels at the time and go, "Oh, they're crap. They get worse and worse, or some are better than others, but it's crap compared to." But with what we watch today, you look at them films and go, "Actually, that's a pretty good film."
yeah. So, could I ask? I mean, you're a massive horror fan for years. This is a question you probably get told to you. What makes a good horror movie with the elements? I mean, you've got story. Would you go for story,
Yeah, story.
effects, gore,
I,
jump
I,
scares, or
yeah.
creepiness?
This would shock a lot of people because people think I just like slasher films, but I don't. I like zombies. I like vampires. I like ghost stories. I mean, I like a mix of all the things. But for me, a horror. If I was to do a horror film, it would be It'd be less. This is shocking people. This would be less gore, and it'd be
Yeah,
more suspense. There'd be more scares in there. Not the jump scares. There'd be more build-ups. And oh, what was that? Did I just see that? Was that something in the background? What
yeah,
happened then? Or like,
yeah,
back to the simple way of filming. Someone watching somebody, looking,
yeah,
peering around a tree or something, or you turning around and then I get that's what I did. It wouldn't be all about effects.
yeah.
I'd probably have a
I'm the same.
I'd probably have a couple in there, to just shock in that way. But I'd really like, because the soundtrack's important. Have you ever noticed? Have you ever noticed on some of these earlier films, Carlos, especially the early 80s horror films, the soundtrack is as scary as the film. If you put your fingers in your ears, or you turn the thing on mute and you watch half these films, they're not very scary.
Yeah.
You have the stings in the Carpenter, and the and the bell, the sting. You add all that in, and that's what gets you. It's the sound. The sound can be scary to people. So the score. I mean, just take Jaws for instance. The shark wasn't even working, but you heard that theme, and the water, because it was real. The water sold it. There's no way you're going in that water. You'll get it. You want to get out. And it's the same in like The Fog. When you hear the knocking on the door, and you think, "Oh God, don't go there, don't go there," and he's walking to the door, and he gets to the door, and he just opens up, and and the payoff weren't there. It was trickery. It was trickery. The payoff weren't there. However, when Mrs. Cobritz goes to the door, and she opens the door, and she goes away, and she turns round and says to, "Go to your room, Andy, right now." And just as he's like saying, "Oh, I want to see," and just as she goes, "No," just as he's going in, they grab her and they pull her into the fog, and you can just see the knives going in and the hooks. That was the payoff there. But there was no door.
Yeah.
It was all atmosphere.
I'm totally with you. I think if you get a good soundtrack, it makes the movie even more scary. Like you said, Jaws. I'd throw The Omen in there.
Omen.
The Fog. You got Halloween.
The Omen, Carlos, was very. That gets.
Yeah.
We did The Omen, didn't we? And that gets forgotten about. So it gets somehow lumped in with the Exorcist crew and all that. So same as the Amityville horror films. They get sort of like pushed out the side for The Exorcist. Well, The Exorcist ain't the be all and end all. I mean, it's a classic film, but when you get The Omen, that's got some really visceral effects in there, and the soundtrack that gets you going as well. So The Fog, The Omen, Halloween, those films, even The Shining, the soundtrack.
Shining, I was going to say The Shining. Yeah, obviously the opening scene as well. I think that soundtrack, you get the creepy moments like something in The Shining where you get the twins. For me, that spooks me rather than seeing bodies getting completely hacked, like in Terrifier, which I do enjoy to a certain extent, but they're just overdone. And it gets to a point where it gets a bit silly.
The Hatchet films started that sort of craze out with Hatchet. And I thought the first couple were really good. And then it started getting over the top. And then Art the Clown comes in. And it's just complete. But how people can be scared by that? I mean,
I laugh at it.
He's a mime artist, and he's a creepy clown. But the kills are just so over the top. There's nothing frightening about any of it. It's just you just laugh to think how absurd can they be in the next one. That's the way horror's gone for the gore fest, isn't it? Well, when you talk about a scary film, they're always the ones that scale back and they slowly build up. I mean, one of the most horrific scenes that scared me as a kid when I first watched Halloween 2 was when, my God, the hot tub scene, and you knew that he'd just killed Bud, and he comes behind and he puts his hand on her shoulder, and she thinks it's him. And when we were watching that as kids, Carlos, we knew it was Michael. We were like, "Oh my God, it's Michael Myers! Oh my God!" He's right there. And then when she turns around and sees him, and then he dunks her. But it was the fact that he was boiling her face.
Yeah, and that was a good scene.
If you listen to the soundtrack, while that's happening, that is as scary as what you're seeing.
Yeah.
I mean, and that was probably the most nastiest kill I'd ever seen at that point in any film. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe I'd saw Dawn of the Dead by that point, but I think Halloween 2 was. I think I saw Halloween 2 before it, so that at that point, no,
Yeah. I
he
think
was terrifying. Michael Myers in Halloween
the
1 and
scene.
2, he was terrifying.
I think the scene that got me in that second one, because I love the second one. People say that the atmosphere is a bit slow because it's in a hospital setting. I love the setting. The scene that
Nah,
got me was the nurse kill where he picks her up with the blade. When I saw that, wow.
it just showed you how gone,
Yeah.
he was. And what people missed is the fact that Michael Myers could have killed any of them any time. He could have killed Jamie Lee
Mm,
Curtis in the lift at the end. He could have, if he'd have walked quicker, but he didn't because he liked
mm,
playing trick or treat. In his
yeah.
mind, he's playing trick or treat. So he
Yeah.
set up the bodies. He set up the bodies in a way so, and he knows there's no way out of that hospital but past him. And he's already been
Mm,
doing all his kills through the night. So when there's just him and her left, he's 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 got some trick or treat. He's got treats for her. The
mm,
trick is that's his treat. He's playing
mm,
trick or treat with all his victims.
mm.
That's That's the scary Michael Myers. He's still that 6 year
Yeah.
old kid from the first one playing trick or treat. He's just an adult. Terrifying, mate.
You
Terrifying that
can
thing was.
you cannot beat old school horror.
No. How would you rate it, Carlos?
The Fog.
Yes.
I'm going to give it a strong 8 out of 10.
Easy. Easy. Yeah, I'd be pressing 9, for me.
Yeah.
Really thumbs up
Um,
for me, that one.
you know, the cast, the story, the creepiness, the way it's shot.
The
I'm kind of
the locations as
yeah.
well. Perfect.
The, the soundtrack, and I'm always surprised when I hear John Carpenter talking about the movie, how he said he didn't rate the movie. I
Yeah.
know it had a bit of a problem in production in it, but I think it didn't turn. I thought it turned out to be a really classic. I really, really do. It kind
I,
of gets lost in
yeah.
some of his other movie from his career, and it's one that I always recommend. It's a
See,
great horror movie.
Carpenter's he's sort of like a manic depressive, isn't he? He really
Hmm.
trashes his own pictures.
Yeah,
Um, he really does. I mean, he's sick to death of Halloween, but he can't let go of it because that's his calling card. But then he does understand about the fog, and then he trashed the fog for a bit, and then he went on to Escape from New York, which he enjoyed, and he loved doing the thing. But he always has. He always has. I mean, that to me, that was what Carpenter's best. Assault on Precinct 13, Halloween, The Fog, Escape from New York. You know that Christine maybe the thing that was Carpenter's golden age.
yeah, yeah,
Those films for me, he won't top. He'd never top them.
yeah,
He'd never top
yeah.
them. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the thing. I never was a huge fan of the thing, but its merit for the creature effects and for what it was, Kurt Russell's performance again, top notch.
Yeah, yeah.
Top
My
notch.
my my, my favorite horror movie would be The Thing.
Yeah,
I'll just get that out there
yeah.
again.
Totally. I, I, I understand that. I was never really sold on it, but
Yeah,
again, it's a great looking film. It's a great film. I
yeah,
wasn't overly keen on it when it came out. It took me years to watch it and watch it. I thought,
yeah,
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 it's an absolute
yeah.
classic. But again, I would always go to The Fog before The Thing, and
Okay,
probably Christine, and then obviously
yeah,
Halloween. But Escape from New York's a great film as well. I mean, that's not a horror film, but
yeah,
it's a great
yeah.
action film.
Basically, those five movies that you said are my John Carpenter top five, but just in different order as you
That's
have
it.
it. So
That's it,
yeah,
mate. That is it. That's Carpenter for me. I mean,
Yeah.
and then later on, I think he did Vampires, that I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
Vampires, I thought was okay. I wasn't overly sold on In the Mouth of Madness and things like that.
No.
I was like, Prince of Darkness, I thought had a good premise with Donald Pleasant. Had a nice little spot from my mate Alice Cooper. But I think it was that was quite boring.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not.
I felt like it should have gone somewhere and it didn't.
Yeah, that actually wouldn't be in my that actually wouldn't be in my top 10. Believe it or not, I've tried to enjoy that one.
Yeah.
I've always, as an underrated one, I think They Live. I think it's just more relevant now.
Oh
And
yeah.
that was probably a movie that was one I was pushed to the side. I wouldn't want to watch because Rowdy Piper, because I was always a big Hulk Hogan fan. But
remember,
honestly, but he was fantastic in it. And when I did get around to watching it, I thought it was a really cool concept.
That's the thing about the wrestlers. Do you expect them to be the characters that you can't stand on the screen? I mean, I could never stand Hogan. I hated him. I hated Hulk Hogan for all. I never liked him from. I mean, I liked him as Thunder Lips in Rocky 3. That's the only time. But his character, when I watched wrestling, I just could not stand him. I liked it when the Earthquake and everybody beat him, and the Undertaker. The Undertaker was more my character, but Ultimate Warrior, Bret Hart, all those, they were brilliant. But when you put a wrestler in a film, they're not you got to remember, this is what people forget. They're not being the character of wrestlers, they're being the character of the film.
Yeah.
So half of them can act really brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say They Live is a pretty underrated Carpenter one.
Yeah.
I always enjoyed that one.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Carlos, I think we talked of this one.
We have The Fog and John Carpenter.
And we've had the interim. We've done some good comparisons to other great movies. We're going to have to do this regular, I think, me and you.
Yeah.
We're going to have to get some of these hammered out, aren't we?
Yeah.
Pick some more classics to hammer out.
Yeah, for sure.
Always a good time. Always a good time. Because it's nice that I've got someone who's my age and remembers what I remember. You know what I mean? It's nice talking about the video shop days and the tracking and all the things that go wrong. It's nice to talk to somebody my age, and we've got them memories together. You were different parts of the country, but it was the same all over the country back then. And we had the same problems. You have the same scrote renting out the VHS and spilling coffee on it, so it wouldn't bloody play for you. And you were paying your pound or something to watch it.
Yeah.
But that's what makes the memories, though.
Great movie. How do you want to end this episode? And Dave, I'll leave it up to you.
Well, Carlos, we've just talked out of it. I think there's nothing left to say, but we're massive fans of The Fog.
Absolutely.
And if anybody's not seen The Fog, but I can speak for Carlos, please watch it. You will not be disappointed. It's old school filmmaking at its finest. There's not many films that can trump it, really.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Great creepy John Carpenter ghost story.
Yeah, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about the soundtrack now.
You're probably going to get a knock on the door tonight.
Oh, well, I'll send Jilly out first.
You know what I mean? If you hear the fridge and the bottles trembling, you know who's going to come knocking on the door.
Flying across, I'm out of here. Yeah. I'll put the clocks forward, back to 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
Right, Carlos. Thank you so much for being here, my friend. We're going to have to hammer this out. Yeah. We're going to have to do lots more of this.
As always, great to be on and talk something different and talking horror. Absolutely.
Always, mate. We'll
do
something different next time. Okay. Right, everybody.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Me and Carlos will probably see you sooner rather than later with another classic. Take care, everybody.
Cheers.